Hey there, everyone. This is Amy Broughton with Photo Business Tools, and I'm here with Leavitt Wells, who is a concert and entertainment photographer. Hi, Leavitt.
Hi, everybody.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here with me and to have you share your story about concert and entertainment photography. It's something we haven't heard about yet on our site, and I think a lot of people will love to hear what you do, how you do it, and how you make it work for you, since we all love photography and doing new things. So really quickly, tell us your story a little bit and let us get to know you.
Let's see here. So I don't even know. I'm 25. I've kind of fell into photography I guess photography has always kind of been in my blood. I was doing broadcast journalism in high school and that kind of stuff. And I would always have my point and shoot camera on me. This is like before iPhone days, or actually like right as iPhones were coming out. So I always had like a point and shoot camera on me, and I was always documenting things and whatnot. But I always swore up and down that I would never get into photography because I thought it was a really expensive hobby and I just never wanted to do it. And then a couple years ago, I kind of fell into it by complete mistake because I took some amazing photos on my point and shoot, and I was like, I wonder what I could do with like a real camera. So I went out and invested in one, and I got it, and then it kind of became something that I had to have all the time. So
Addicted.
yeah, I mean, once you buy your first DSLR, and then I was like, oh, this will just be a hobby, and then end of story. It just kept going, and then I played around in different niches for a little while. So for a while, I was convinced that I was going to do like baby photography and newborns and that kind of stuff. So I played in that, and then I was convinced that I was going to do sports photography. In fact, I had planned on being at the 2016 Olympics in Rio. I had planned everything, and then I fell into concerts, and I was like, oh, I'm done. I found it.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. So I was calling it event photography, but you corrected me a little earlier that it's actually concert and entertainment photography. So kind of explain exactly what that means and how that label works for your world.
Okay, so event photography, I kind of when I do an event, it's more like a party. I go up and I show up to clubs, and I do shots inside of clubs. I go to birthday parties, I go to bar mitzvahs, and an event, or like you're going to a gala and that kind of thing. So I call those events. Concert and entertainment photography is when you end up doing red carpets. You're working with celebrities, you're working with artists, you're working with all of that. And so what I do, I'm not above doing events. I do tons of events. But I like to label myself as a concert and entertainment photographer because I'm aimed more towards, being with the celebrities and working in that sort of environment.
Awesome. Tell us how you got into it, how you fell into it, and kind of your story with that.
I fell into concert photography by complete accident. And everybody hates the way that I got started because it really is it just doesn't happen like this. It really doesn't. And I got really lucky in the way that I got started. My very first show was with Winona Judd.
Wow.
I had some friends that were opening up for her, and they asked me to come out and shoot their show. And I was like, okay, that'll be great. The band is Firefly. They're the cutest little redheads ever. And they were opening up for Winona, and they invited me to come. And I was like, sweet, score, and I found, when you shoot concert photography, you lose a lot of a light. And so you're forced to use, stage lighting and that kind of stuff. So you're forced to, go use different resources than what you'd normally use on a portrait shoot or a wedding shoot and that kind of stuff. And so I found that I understood low light photography very well. And it was just really fast. So anyway, so I got started with that. And then my next gig was with Donnie and Marie Osmond. And a lot of people hate that because they came here to Arizona, and I did 8 out of their 10 shows, got published in a bunch of different media outlets and that kind of stuff. Wow. And then I started working with from there I got passed on to the Osmond brothers. From the Osmond brothers, I got passed on to Lindsay Sterling. From Lindsay Sterling, I got passed on to, and it just kind of kept snowballing. And it doesn't happen like that. It really doesn't. People hate me when I tell them my story because it's so bizarre because it just doesn't happen like that.
So maybe I should ask you how other people can get into it and not your story.
How did I get into it?
Yeah, if other people are watching this and say, that sounds like me, I want to do this.
Yeah.
Their normal pathway into concert photography.
Yeah. The normal pathway typically is that you go to dive bars. That's what we call them. And they're the rinky dinky bars that get, bars and clubs, because that's kind of where you have to go to get the music. And you go to these clubs and you typically even have to pay your own way to get in. You go into these clubs and you just shoot, and the lighting sucks and the sound is horrible, but you're forced to practice different techniques. And then once you start getting that down and, you're working on having, proper exposure, which that's a whole different thing I can get into later.
Yeah.
But having proper exposure, having proper shutter speed, having proper, etiquette, being around people. And then you start to, and then you start realizing that you don't have to shoot, in a show, 8,000 photos. You all of a sudden start realizing that you can take, a handful of shots and you've got it. So it's just kind of practicing. And at that point, then you start to reach out to some of the other venues in your area, some of the smaller ones. And then people start to notice you. It takes a while, though. It's a lot of working for free. To kind of build it up. And then the only way to really get anywhere in this industry is to work for a media outlet or to work for the client itself. So that's where I got my start, is that I started working with the clients.
Right.
Because they can tell me I can do whatever I want. So I did. So that's a big thing, is working directly for the client. Or you can get in with the venue. And sometimes, and those are called house photographers, and venues like having those photos and whatnot. So you kind of just have to, you kind of got to start knocking doors and telling people that this is what you want to do. And at first you can't charge, which really, really sucks. But once you start getting there, then you can start charging and that kind of.
Awesome. So let's go right into that, because, a lot of people wonder, is this worth it? Is this something you can get paid well for? What is the...
You can, but you also can't. It's really hard in this industry right now. It's really, really hard to get paid because everybody is willing to work for free. I mean, a lot of people know this. You've got a friend down the street who will do a photo shoot for $25 when you're sitting here charging $250, $300. And even then, in the concert photography world, a lot of photographers, just to get into the venue or to get a photo pass, will only charge, will say, I'll just shoot you for free if you just give me a ticket and get me in.
Wow.
And it kills the rest of us who depend on this to make a living.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whereas back in, even 6 years ago, you could, my colleagues could walk away from a gig making $1,200, $1,300.
Yeah.
And now you're lucky if you sit and make $100 a show.
Wow.
It's different when you work for the client because, there's just a lot of logistics that come into this, because when you're shooting for a client, you're shooting, I walk in and I say, okay, well, this is what it costs for me to just show up. I'm going to be here for this amount of time. This is just what it costs me to show up. After that, this is, I will send you photos. You can use them for social media as long as you credit me. And most of the time they have no problem with that, because at this point they paid. But if they do anything outside of use those photos for social media, they have to come get a license from me. So they have to then pay me for that photo. They have to tell me where they're using it, how long they're going to be using it, and what they're using it for. And then I will send them a quote, and I'll say, for instance, if it's going on a billboard, I'm going to charge them like $1,000 to use that photo, because it's probably going to be up there for a while.
Yeah.
If they're using it on, for instance, I just had a photo get used on Ticketmaster. It's going to be up for forever. So I charged a big old fatty rate for that. And they were like, oh, okay, like, they don't really, I mean, if they want the photo, then they'll take it.
Yeah.
It's kind of just one of those, there is money to be made. You just have to stand your ground when people say, no, I don't want to pay you. And you have to say, fine. And you have to walk away. And that's really, really, really hard, especially when you're trying to get started. And you need these names in order to get places.
Yeah.
So it's really, really hard. It's not impossible, but it's hard.
So tell me why you like this compared to like portrait or wedding photography. I know you kind of dabbled in babies. What is it that you love about this?
I love concert photography because no show is ever the same. And everybody can be like, well, no wedding's the same. No, no session is ever the same. And there's total truth in it because I do on the side do portrait photography. I don't dabble in weddings. I just don't have the patience for it. But, every single show is different. I have never watched a same show twice. And I've been on tours with bands and everything. And a show is never the same. Also, I suck at posing. I can't pose to save my life. So it is really nice that I don't have to pose my client on stage. In fact, I'm actually not allowed to pose them. There's like 2 exceptions to that rule, and that's if I'm like working with the band and I'm not, and if sound check, I can be like, hey, take 2 steps here. But as a general rule, you don't get to tell your client what to do.
Yeah.
And so it's really just capturing that moment. It's moving fast. It's thinking really, really fast. I have to know my camera in the dead of night. Like, I have to be able to configure things without being able to see it. So it forces me to be better and faster and to think better. And
you're also like loaded with gear. Like when I saw you had like camera packs on your thighs. You look like Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, except with cameras. I was like, whoa, look at that.
Yeah, no, I shoot on, when I go to a show, I shoot on 3 different cameras.
All attached to your body.
They are all attached.
I love it.
They are. I have certain gear that I just can't stand not shooting with. So I guess, gear that you have to have when it comes to shooting in concerts is that you have to have good low light equipment. So all of my gear is 2.8 or faster, every single one. So you have to have, there are 2 key lenses that you have to have in this to make this work. You have to have a 70-200 or a 24-70. You can get rid of, you don't necessarily have to have, a 16-35 or a 400 lens or anything like that, but you have to have a 70-200 and you have to have a 24-70 to get any good shots. And that's just if you're shooting from the pit, which I guess, so for people who haven't gone to shows, let me break this down for you because there's also like rules that come into concert photography. So there's a stage. So this is for most shows. It doesn't always go down like this, but this is kind of standard. So when you go to a show, there's the stage, and then there's like a little break in the stage between the stage and the fans, and there's a barricade, and that's to keep the fans from like mobbing the artist.
Okay. And
then there's all the fans behind that. So the concert photographers will go into that pit, and we're only allowed in there. So the saying is 3 songs, no flash. So you're only allowed in the pit for 3 songs. You're not allowed to use flash, and you got to get your shots, and they boot you out. Sometimes with like certain artists that I work with, like for instance, Luke Bryan, you're only allowed to shoot songs 2 and 3. Wow. And Blake Shelton, you're only allowed to shoot song 3. And different artists have different rules. Who was it? Beyonce didn't allow any photographers at her shows.
You shot for Beyonce?
I haven't, but she because of a concert photographer, because of the viral photo that went down about the Super Bowl, she didn't allow any photographers, so everybody got denied because of that instance. And so anyway, so when you go in, you've got to work fast. You have 12 minutes. And depending on who you're shooting for, if I shoot for a band, then I typically have an all-access pass and I can stay in the pit for as long as I need to. I can typically shoot on stage and move around and whatnot. But typically, you're stuck in the photo pit. And after 3 songs, they actually boot you out of the venue. You're not even allowed to stay in the venue.
Wow.
So it's not a, woohoo, I'm going to go see a show for free.
Yeah.
It's get in, get your job done, and get your butt out because you got to get these photos up
That's crazy.
before you even leave the venue sometimes.
Wow. Wow. So fun. So tell me who you've shot for. We want to hear your list of fun people.
Oh, let's see here. Who can I think of off the top of my head? My big client is Imagine Dragons. I do a lot of work for them.
Woo, I love them.
Yeah, good stuff. Good guys. Really good guys.
Cool.
Shot for Imagine Dragons, Lindsay Sterling, Donnie and Marie Osmond, done quite a bit of work for them. American Authors, Capital Cities.
Oh, love, love, love.
I just worked for Blake Shelton and Luke Bryan and Jamie Lynn Spears.
Awesome.
And who else have I worked with?
Okay, you promised me a story too.
Oh.
A funny story.
Okay, my story is
there has to be something funny or more than one funny story in this kind of photography. So
oh my gosh, there are so many funny stories. So I probably shouldn't tell this story. I'll probably get busted for it, but I highly doubt anybody will share it. So I'm just going to share it anyways because it's too funny. So I was working Country Thunder a couple of weeks ago, which is a huge, it's like, please don't take offense, anybody, but it's like redneck Woodstock. It is there's everybody there. It is packed. They're camping. It's ridiculous. I was there working as a photographer. I was actually working for, what was I working for? I was working for Phoenix New Times. That's one of my publications that I work for. So I was working for them, and I'm in the media trailer. And I'm sitting in there, and it was Sunday night, and Luke Bryan's people had been in, and they had been doing stuff, and just probably, when was it? It was probably about 20 minutes before Luke took the stage. His manager comes running in, and he goes, I need a printer. Does anybody have a printer? And we're like, yeah? What do you need? He's like, we need to print off lyrics to a song. And so one of the PR guys pulls up his computer, and he's like, okay. He's like, who is it by? And he goes, Luke. And I was like, I just started laughing. I was like giggling inside because, you can't do that. His manager's standing there, PR. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, Luke just decided to change a song just a couple minutes ago, and he doesn't remember all the words to the song. So we need to print them up so that he doesn't mess them up. I was like, I mean, but that's the reality of these stars and these celebrities, is that they are, a lot of people forget that they're just as human as we are. And, they will miss stuff just like I do, and they put their pants on the same way that I do, one leg at a time.
Right.
But it's still really funny when you're like, really? You don't even know the words to your own songs? Really? But if you think about it, Luke has written so many songs over so many years. It's not surprising.
It's true. Well, that's so fun that you kind of probably get to know them and see that they're real people and have some really cool experiences. So.
Oh, yeah. One of my other favorite stories happened while I was at Country Thunder. So I'm sitting, all day long, I had been hearing Blake Shelton's people were in our trailer. In fact, actually, when I walked into the trailer, they're like, you need to move over here because Blake's people have to have this table. And I was like, okay. So I'm sitting there at my table, and I had come in from working a couple of shoots, or I had shot like two shows at that point. So I'd come in to like dump and to like start calling and getting everything set up. And I'm sitting there, and Blake's people are sitting next to me, and, we strike up a conversation and we're talking. I not only meet his manager, but I also meet his tour manager. And both of those people are like key in these artists' lives because they control what happens. Like, they control who gets access.
Yeah. Wow.
So I'm sitting there, and I like strike up a conversation with them, and I'm having a good time and everything. And everything's all fine and hunky-dory. And then I like run out, shoot another show, come back, start dumping. And I turned to one of the PR guys. I was like, hey, check out this shot. And he was like, hey, that's a great shot. Well, then all of a sudden Blake's people are like popping over my shoulder and like, oh, that's pretty dang cool. Hey, that's sweet. I was like, thanks. Like, you're looking at unedited work. This is awkward. Please don't. Like, okay. So I was like, anyways, so then we got to talking a little bit, and people were originally cleared to shoot Blake and then they yanked it and we weren't allowed to anymore. And so in talking with them, I was able to get them to get me and two of my buddies to actually have permission to shoot the show, because they can yank whenever they want. Anyway, so they yanked shooting Blake, and I was able, from making friends with the managers, to get permission for me and my buddy. But here's where it gets really funny.
Okay.
I'm listening. Blake's not on tour right now, so unlike everybody else at this venue who had buses, he didn't. And so I'm listening to how they're going to get Blake in to Florence, which is like middle of Nowheresville, Arizona. It's actually like down the street from the jail in Arizona. It's ridiculous. So what ended up happening is that they flew Blake in on his private plane to a teeny tiny little airport. The sheriff then picked him up in his helicopter, choppered him to the event, and like they cleared out like a parking spot area. I was like, really? I saw it as I was driving out. I was like, really? This is a little overkill, but okay. They chopper him in. He gets to this place, and then the sheriffs pick him up in 3 different cars, put him in one of the cars, and drive him over to the media trailer. So then all of a sudden I'm sitting, and I'm getting ready to go shoot, and all of a sudden I hear boom, 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 coming up like the trailer stairs. And I was like, okay. And I'm not even paying attention. I'm just doing my thing. And I hear, hey, hey, hey. And I was like, oh, okay, normal people walking in and out. And I turn my head and I look over in the corner and there's Blake. And I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. So Blake is in our trailer with us for probably about 45 minutes, just talking to us and hanging out with us.
Oh, nice.
It's me and another journalist and a PR guy. So it was just the 3 of us. Not even Blake's managers were hanging out.
Wow.
And so that was really cool to like just talk with Blake and that kind of stuff. Well, the next thing I know, I was talking to the PR guy, and we're talking about a shoot that had happened earlier in the day, and we're kind of teasing one of the artists about something that they had done. And he goes, do you have photos of it? And I was like, yeah, let me pull it up. So I pulled it up. And so the PR guy and then the journalist came over. And then the next thing I know, I feel this gigantic thing just like right over on this side of on my left shoulder. And I was like, I just remember looking up and being like, oh, that's Blake. And he's looking at photos. And this is really awkward. I just remember like, I can't believe it. I was like,
that's so fun though.
Yeah, it was totally fun, but at the same time I was like, and Blake is a really big guy, like just a big guy. And so I was like, okay. So then Blake is getting ready to go out and do a meet and greet. I've got to get ready to go out and shoot his show. And so as I'm getting ready to I still can't believe I did this. So I'm getting ready to get my gear on, and I looked over at Blake and I was like, hey Blake, I got a question for you. And he's like, yeah, what's up? And I was like, I'm going to be unprofessional for about 4 seconds. I was like, and it's okay to say no, 100%. And he's like, okay. And I was like, can I take a selfie with you? And I was like, it's totally okay to say no. And he's like, no, it's okay. And I was like, are you sure? Like, really, truly, you can say no. He's like, darling, I've been in this industry long enough. I know when it's okay to say no. It's okay. Come on over here and let's take a picture. And I was like, okay.
So cute.
I went over and I took a picture. And he really is, like, when people say that he's tall, oh, he really is tall. Like, I was just like, like, I thought I was going to get stepped on. I felt like I was an ant getting stepped on.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun.
He's hilarious. Great guy.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh, how fun. You're starstruck and you get to do all this fun stuff with concerts and
but you can't act starstruck. Like I was totally like giddy on the inside, but I was like, oh, this is like nothing. And on the outside, like on the outside I'm all cool, and on the inside I'm like, holy crap.
I love it. I love it. Well, you have been so much fun. You're so great. And I know this is like, sounds like you just have found your dream and you're making it happen. And it's not an easy road for sure, which I'm glad you were totally honest about that, because, you know, you got to be real. People need to know that if they decide or are thinking about doing this. So we appreciate it.
It is not a walk in the park, but the rewards are worth it.
Good.
And in the long run, I've been doing this now. I'm going into my 3rd professional year, and it's worth it in the long run.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and all of your expertise and wisdom. Okay, we'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.